Ajoke was so devastated. She held her son's lifeless body close to her heart as she hoped for a miracle to happen. Tears streamed down her face as her heart shattered into a million pieces. Ajoke and Abiodun, having endured the loss of one son, now faced the unbearable pain of losing another. Once upon a time, in the kingdom of Isolo, lived a woman named Ajoke. Ajoke lived with her husband Abiodun, and for over 10 years, they struggled to have a child of their own. Her husband's family made life unbearable for her as they believed that she was barren. Ajoke's husband, however, stood by his wife as he shielded her from his family, who put all the blame on Ajoke for their childlessness. However, after 10 years of waiting, Ajoke became pregnant with child. Everyone jubilated, especially Ajoke and her husband, who could not believe that they would soon finally parent a child. Ajoke and Abiodun could not wait to finally meet their baby after so many years of waiting. So one morning, this was 9 months later, Ajoke's water broke as she went into intense labor. After several hours of painful labor, the baby had still not been born. Ajoke was in extreme pain as she groaned aloud for hours. The midwife did all she could to deliver the baby, but after so many hours of pain, Ajoke collapsed and didn't make a sound. Her husband Abiodun panicked as he ran into the village to look for help. He met a very powerful woman named Iyabo, who was known for her experience in childbirth and herbal remedies. Abiodun pleaded with Iyabo to come save his wife's life, and Iyabo agreed to come to Ajoke's aid. Upon her arrival, Iyabo assessed Ajoke's condition and immediately set to work. She prepared a mixture of herbs and oils, chanting ancient prayers as she applied them on Ajoke's belly. The atmosphere in the room shifted, and an air of anticipation filled the whole place. Ajoke's consciousness was immediately restored as Iyabo guided her with the delivery. After a few minutes, Ajoke gave birth to a bouncing baby boy, and everyone was so ecstatic as they thanked Iyabo for saving Ajoke's life. Ajoke and Abiodun beheld the sight of their newborn baby, and this brought them so much joy as they could not believe that they were finally parents. However, in the midst of their joy, Ajoke noticed something about her baby which seemed odd. Her baby had a peculiar birthmark on his left hand, which was shaped like a moon. Ajoke, although concerned about the birthmark, basked in the euphoria of being a new mom and decided not to dwell so much on the birthmark. That same night, when the moon was in full bloom, Ajoke noticed that her baby's birthmark began to glow. She called for her husband, as the sight of this terrified her greatly. But before her husband arrived, her son had given up the ghost. He died mysteriously in her arms, and Ajoke froze in shock. At first, Ajoke thought the baby was asleep, but noticed that his body was now getting cold and stiff. Devastated at what had just happened, Ajoke screamed at the top of her voice as she could not believe that her precious son was gone. Hearing Ajoke's screams, the entire village rushed to her hut to see what was happening. Abiodun, heartbroken and confused, held the lifeless body of his son in his arms. The peculiar birthmark on the baby's hand no longer glowed. Instead, it seemed to have faded away. The news of the tragic event spread quickly throughout the kingdom of Isolo, and many gathered to mourn the unexpected loss of the child. Ajoke was inconsolable at this point as she sat down in the corner of her hut, lost in her own thoughts. She could not take her mind off the strange glow on her baby's hand and wondered what it could be. For months, Ajoke mourned the loss of her son as she feared the possibility of never having a child again. However, not long afterwards, Ajoke got pregnant a second time with child. She was so shocked at how easily it was for her to get pregnant this time and couldn't wait to have her own child. Amidst her sorrow, Ajoke and Abiodun found solace in the fact that they were soon welcoming a new life in their home. As Ajoke's due date drew closer, Ajoke began to pray for the safe arrival of her child. She prayed for a future filled with laughter, as she could not bear to be robbed once more of her joy. A few days later, during the peak of the afternoon, Ajoke was taking a walk around her hut when she suddenly felt a sharp pain in her stomach. Ajoke groaned in pain as a liquid substance trickled down her legs. She called out for her husband, who quickly sent for Iyabo as he noticed that his wife was in labor. Iyabo, on hearing this, rushed as fast as she could to Ajoke's home and met Ajoke in so much pain. This time, Ajoke felt worse pain than she did during her first pregnancy. Her labor was so intense as her cries echoed through the village, touching the hearts of those who heard it. After several hours, Ajoke gave birth to a bouncing baby boy, and the cry of the baby filled everyone's hearts with joy. However, this joy was short-lived as Ajoke realized that their baby looked exactly like their first son and had the same birthmark on his left hand. Ajoke's heart raced as she examined the moon-shaped birthmark on her baby's left arm. It looked faint, and Ajoke panicked at the thought of losing another child. She recalled how her first son's birthmark glowed moments before he died, and the thought of this filled her with dread as she prayed and hoped that nothing bad happens to her baby boy. As the night drew closer, Ajoke's heart began to palpitate. She held her baby close to her chest as she glanced at the strange birthmark. After a few hours, Ajoke noticed that her son's birthmark began to glow, and before she knew what was happening, he died in her arms. Ajoke was so devastated. She held her son's lifeless body close to her heart as she hoped for a miracle to happen. Tears streamed down her face as her heart shattered into a million pieces. Ajoke and Abiodun, having endured the loss of one son, now faced the unbearable pain of losing another. The birthmark on their son's arm, which glowed moments before, now dimmed like a fading scar. Iyabo, witnessing what happened like a deja vu, approached Ajoke to console her for the loss of her baby, but Ajoke could not be consoled as she called on death to take her life as well. Ajoke was hell-bent on ending her life, and this troubled her husband, Abiodun, who did everything within his power to protect his wife. One morning, Abiodun woke up and noticed that his wife was no longer in bed. He searched the entire hut, but Ajoke was nowhere to be found. Abiodun was terrified as he feared that the worst might have happened to his wife. Desperation gripped him as he rushed out of their hut, shouting Ajoke's name through the village. The news of Ajoke's disappearance spread quickly, and the villagers joined Abiodun in his search. They combed the entire village, hoping to find Ajoke, but she was nowhere to be found. Night came, and Ajoke had still not been found. Abiodun, worried that something terrible might have happened to his wife, sat outside his hut restless as he hoped and prayed for Ajoke's return. A few hours later, Abiodun heard a strange sound coming from behind his neighbor's hut. He walked gently towards the sound and heard the voice of a woman doing some incantations. Abiodun listened closely and noticed that the enchantments were directed at his wife and himself. Confused at what was going on, Abiodun moved closer to catch a glimpse of who it was, and to his greatest surprise, he saw his neighbor Arike looking up at the moon as she did some incantations. Abiodun, unable to hold back his anger, approached Arike, who was shocked to see that she had been nabbed. She went down on her knees and began to plead for forgiveness, and Abiodun asked her why she was after his family. Arike revealed that she had been bitter with Abiodun for all these years, but pretended to be happy. So she did everything within her power to ensure that Abiodun and his wife remained unhappy all the days of their marriage. What had happened was that many years ago, before Abiodun met his wife, he was in a relationship with Arike and promised to marry her. However, along the line, Arike met a rich, handsome man who also promised to marry her. So, Arike pushed Abiodun away, saying that she was no longer interested in marrying him. This shattered Abiodun's heart, who was head over heels in love with Arike. Abiodun did everything possible to convince Arike to marry him, but she blatantly refused, warning him never to approach her again in his life. Sad and dejected, Abiodun decided to move on with his life, and not long afterwards, he met Ajoke, who he fell deeply in love with and decided to marry. During their wedding preparation, Arike returned to Abiodun to apologize for how she treated him, saying that she had learnt her lesson and was ready to marry him. The handsome rich man, who she left Abiodun for, left her, so she decided to return back to Abiodun, who she did not know was already planning to get married to another woman. When Abiodun told Arike that he was already getting married, Arike did everything possible to convince him to marry her, but Abiodun had already made up his mind to marry Ajoke. This angered Arike, who vouched to ensure that Abiodun never enjoyed his marriage to Ajoke. She pretended as if she had moved on, but little did they know that she was behind all the terrible things that had been happening to them. Arike was doing incantations to kill Ajoke before she was caught, and luckily for him, he disrupted the incantations before it could take effect, rendering it ineffective. When Abiodun heard this, he could not believe his ears. He asked Arike where his wife was, and Arike revealed that Ajoke was in her hut, unconscious. Immediately Arike finished confessing, she ran mad and began to roam the streets of the village, confessing her crime to anyone who cared to listen. Abiodun rushed into her hut and caught sight of his wife, who was extremely weak and unable to talk. He was so grateful that nothing bad had happened to her. He rushed her home and alerted the entire village of what Arike had done and how she ran mad after making her confession. The villagers were all shocked, as they never believed that Arike could ever do such a thing in her life. That was how Abiodun and his wife were liberated from the evil that plagued their lives, as Ajoke gave birth to twin boys, and they lived happily ever after. The lesson to be learned from this story is that if you do bad things to others, it will come back to hurt you. Don't be jealous of others, because envy makes us do bad things. Be nice to people and get rid of hate from your heart. I hope you enjoyed the story. Like, subscribe and leave a comment. It helps us grow our channel. I'll see you in our next story. Bye.